Hey everyone, welcome back to Fundraising Demystified. Today we have the king of swag, Jeremy Parker, with us, who was the founder of swag.com. Welcome to the show, Jeremy.
Thank you so much for having me. It's great to be here.
You ultimately grew this 40 million in sales and sold it to Custom Ink, which I believe is probably one of the biggest in the space. How did you take it to 40 million? What was the secret sauce? That was in 2016 to 2021, 2022.
Yep.
Pretty rapid growth rate. What would you account for that success?
Yeah. So in the early days, 2016, we had no tech platform. It was just me and my co-founder. We were working out of a WeWork, several offices before WeWork, his apartment building, pool room, and all these different things. We were traveling salesmen. So our early days, it was all just about trying to make sales. It wasn't about the revenue. It was about learning. So that was like 2016 was who are the customer? Let's talk to as many customers as possible. Let's frankly show up at their office. And the worst they could say is get lost. And we did that. And because we were a member of WeWork, we had the ability to walk up and down the hallways of all the WeWorks. We would knock on doors and people would say, not interested, not the right time. But eventually somebody would have a conversation with us and we would either learn a lot from those conversations or we would make a sale. And our first year, we did 350,000 of sales, which to us, two people, was pretty amazing. No platform, a swag.com coming soon landing page. Before I continue with the revenue, I want to just say one thing, why we got swag.com and why it was so important. The key insight early on was you could be showing somebody an ad of a pair of shoes on Facebook in January, and it's an impulse purchase. They'll buy those pair of shoes, right? Or a t-shirt or jeans. If you show an ad of swag, you have to find the person at the exact moment when they want to buy thousands of dollars worth of swag for their company. The odds that you're going to get person exactly at the right time is very unlikely. So we wanted to get people, whenever they see our ad, and then remember the swag.com name, 7 months later, and then go directly to their browser. We wanted to turn these offline conversations to online purchasing. 7 months later, you start talking with your coworker about swag, and then it triggers, swag.com, let's go back into it.
I said it worked on us.
Yeah, exactly. It works. So we bought this domain name in the early days. We didn't have any money to buy this name. We worked out a deal with the owner where we would license it. We licensed the name, and we gave the person a little bit of equity in the company. Worst comes to worst, the person gets their domain name back plus payments for the time we rented it. Best case, they got the amount of rent. We also ended up paying the full price of what we agreed on pre-negotiation, and they were able to keep equity in a growing company. So it was like this win where the worst case, the guy gets his domain name back and some money for the monthly rent. So we get this domain, we start making sales. Second year, 2017, we launched the first version of our e-commerce site. Honestly, 500 plus conversations with the potential buyer. So when we were building stuff, 90% of the stuff we built, it was like we knew it was going to work because it was being told to us exactly what the problems were and how to solve it. And we used these people as like a soundboard. It was like 10% new ideas that we threw against the wall. And for those 10% of new ideas, some of it worked, some of it didn't work. But the 90%, we felt so confident that we're spending money developing, it's going to work because we had these conversations. So 2017, we launched the first version of the site. We went from 350,000 to 1.1 million, keep learning to 3 million, keep learning to 7 million. Every year was doubling. We got into COVID. COVID hit in 2020, and we had to pivot. Obviously, as you can imagine, there's no trade shows, there's no events, there's no reason to buy swag. No one's in the office. So our whole industry dropped off a cliff. Even our sales, we were going from 800,000 a month at the time to like 50,000. It was like March, April, and May were like hovering 40, 50,000. It was nothing. And obviously we had a big team at this point. We pivoted really fast and quickly. We were very lucky. We noticed that if everyone's working remote, everyone's disconnected. Everyone's feeling that. Let's pivot and become like the remote first company and how to engage your remote employees even when no one's in the office. So really try to build out this platform where you could buy swag on our site, we'll warehouse it, and then they can individually distribute swag to all their remote employees. And we built out this robust platform for individual distribution. After that, our sales went from 7 million to 15 million. It scaled up because no one else had that. Everyone needed it. And we were frankly the only game in town to be able to do this remote distribution. And then that kept scaling to 30 million. Then we got sold to Custom Ink. So I guess the short answer is we learned a lot from our customers, built the right things. We're obsessed with the product, like really obsessed with the product to make sure it's exactly right. That's one part. The second part is we figured out what traction channels work for us at different times. Early days, we had no money. Me and Josh were traveling salesmen. That was our first year. The second year, we made a little bit of money. So then we started investing in Google ads. Google brings you a lot of customers, but it's not necessarily the most optimized, and we're maybe overpaying. But then we got more customers in the door. Then we started figuring out, well, SEO makes more sense for us. So we actually only focused on one traction channel exclusively. It was like only sales in the first year, only Google the second year, and only SEO in the third year. And then once we understood each of those different driving factors, then we combined forces and allowed it all to work in the fourth year and the fifth year, and then adding partnerships, things that you couldn't necessarily do in the beginning. They felt confident with us. So we just really kind of kept adding new traction channels to allow us to grow.
Yeah, I think this is an incredibly valuable point for all founders to hyper focus on a single channel. I see too many founders, especially in their pitch decks of their pre-seed and seed, like they put their go-to-market strategy of SEO, pay-per-click, social media, and they're like, oh yeah, you're going to accomplish all of those successfully in your first year, first time trying to market. And I think what you just described there of that hyper focus, one channel, get to a certain amount of revenue, validate it, and then before you graduate to the next one is advice I would give to any founder that is in that kind of 0 to 1 stage. You've seen the startup world, people buying swag. You covered just about any and all types of swag. What's a wild story of where you kind of sat there and was like, this company bought what and how many of it?
We have a lot of those. We had a client, I can't say, but they were a big gym company. They wanted to reward all of their executives. So they bought really premium, amazing bicycles for every single executive. And for us, it was just like such a cool order. Every bike was, I believe, a little over than $400 and 300 of them. And it was like fully custom. The whole thing was like really custom, beautiful, and different types, designs. That was a fun project to work on. We had a client who bought cast iron skillets, which I've never seen before. I never thought that somebody would want a cast iron skillet with the company logo on the base of it, but they did. People come up with different ideas to stand out and to really make an impact. And that's what we pitched at swag.com. It was all about the quality. There are the classics, the t-shirts, the notebooks, the pens, the mugs, but some people go a little bit different and it works for them. And so we just want to be the partner to really help them, get exactly what they want.
Bicycles gotta be pretty cool. Thank you for that. So let's talk about swag.com. How did you come up with this idea of building swag.com and what ultimately led you to?
Yeah, so somewhat of a long story. I'll try to condense it. I was a documentary filmmaker in college. That was my passion. That was my background. I was 19 years old. I made this documentary film called 1% that won the Vail Film Festival. I was on the top of the mountain in Vail, Colorado, and I thought maybe this was going to be my career. This would be my life. I asked myself 2 questions at the time. It's like a really smack me in the face moment. Do I love what I'm doing? Do I truly love it? And am I that good? It was a question. I see this future. I'm 18 years old, 19 years old, and I'm thinking, is this going to be my life? Am I going to be a filmmaker? At that moment, I decided no, and I wanted to pursue something else. So I went back to college. I was a junior at Boston University. I had 1 more year of film, so I had to graduate. I finished. And when I graduated college, I didn't know what to do. My background was film. So I thought maybe I can use some of the skills like telling stories. Filmmaking is all about telling stories and building brands. Maybe I could use that skill set for businesses. I started my first business out of college called Tees and Tats. It was a high-end t-shirt company. When you think about it, you're learning how to manufacture and how to market yourself and how to build an e-commerce site. This is pre-Shopify days. Like everything was frankly more difficult. I launched this t-shirt company and it had some early success, but this was 2007, the recession. So everything was going under and no one wanted high-end t-shirts. And so I kind of failed, I guess you could say that, my first startup. But I got the bug of like loving to build things and figuring out that, I was good at some things and not great at other things. And I started a business with my brother called Tipped Media. We basically partnered up with YouTube stars and major celebrities. And we help get brands into their YouTube videos. So now it's like the most common thing, product placement, right? Every celebrity is doing product placement in their videos. But back, 15 years ago when we were starting this, it was very Wild West. No one was doing that. And we would partner with brands like State Farm, Colgate, Verizon, and get those brands into the YouTube stars video and make these YouTube stars millionaires. And then our idea became, what if we actually got major celebrities, like the biggest celebrities in the world? What if we owned their rights on their Twitter and Facebook feeds? This is still very early. Pitbull, for example, had 4,000 followers on Twitter, and now he's like 40 million. We didn't know any celebrities. So we partnered up with a guy named Jesse Itzler, who your audience might know, founder of Marquis Jet, private jet company, Zico Coconut Water, owner of Atlanta Hawks. And we started buying the rights to different major celebrities, Twitter. And we basically owned their Twitter and Facebook feeds so early. So if you combine this YouTube idea of building these relationships with brands and putting into YouTube videos, and now the major celebrities that we own getting brands and putting in YouTube videos, it was a really exciting thing to kind of own. And we were thinking at that time to start like a Groupon-like idea where you could go to a guy like, he wasn't a partner, but LeBron James, for example, and you say to LeBron, give me your 100 favorite products. Like what you truly enjoy, what you truly love. Let's say he says, I love Lay's potato chips. And then we go to Lay's and say, LeBron James truly loves you. Can you do a deal with LeBron where he would post it to his social media fans? And then every time somebody buys a bag of Lay's, he would split it with you. Kind of like a Groupon-like deal, but promoted through social influencers. We ended up selling that company to the guy, Bob Sillerman's publicly traded companies. It was very early on. It was about 7 months after we launched. We built the company, got a lot of these celebrity contracts, and then flipped it to Bob Sillerman's company. Then after that, I had a failure, a 3-year failure. I started a social media company called Vouch. It was like a social networking app, democratizing Oprah's favorite things for everybody. So you could vouch for your favorite stuff, see what your friends vouch for, and like discover new things. Spent about 3 years doing that, and it didn't work. I raised a lot of money for that.
How much did you raise for that?
Close to $6 million, I believe, at the time. So it was significant. It was the most we've ever raised, or I've ever raised at that point. And then after you have a failure, and to me, that was a lot. We took family and friends' money. We lost investors' money, people I didn't really know that well. It's a horrible feeling. I came up with swag right after that because my mindset was I had that experience with building something and it didn't work. I spent 3 years building something that just didn't work. The model was designed that it had to get really scale for it to ultimately work. Like social media is the hardest business to type of start. And I thought, I just want to start something that is, I'm going to make money from day one. It doesn't have to be the biggest idea. I could just start selling something. It's a physical product. I'm going to make money. And I just went all in on swag.com when I was 30 years old. This was in 2016. And I had a key insight when we were starting. I didn't know what exactly to build. Like every entrepreneur, you have an idea and then you obviously pivot a lot and you change. At the time, I was 30 years old. So I was going on dates a lot. And a lot of the girls that I would meet, honestly, were these like office managers. They were working at companies and they were buying swag. I was thinking to myself, the person who buys swag today is so much younger than they probably were in the past. They used to be a 40, 50-year-old office manager. Now it's a much younger person. If I had to get my mindset into the mind of a young person when they're given this budget for $10,000 of their company money, what's going to make them decide to choose one company over another company? And I started going down this rabbit hole. And I started, me and my co-founder, Josh, at the time, we were calling hundreds of marketing teams and office managers and different people who we think at the company who would be in charge of buying swag. And frankly, even in the beginning, our idea initially was let's go after the marketing teams because they have the biggest budget. It could be a 10-person company, but you could be buying millions of dollars worth of swag technically if there's an ROI. So let's go for the marketing teams because it doesn't matter how big of a company they are, employee count wise.
This all came from going on dates.
No, it was a combination.
Bumble dates and Tinder dates that you're going on, and these girls are like complaining about their job. And you're like, that's an opportunity.
Yeah, no, it was that. It was just talking. I was 30 years old. I had friends who were younger, even my friends who were 30 who were in charge of this role of buying swag, or they knew like I asked them, who's the person at your company who buys swag? Now, there's so many things that I learned in hindsight. Now I'm thinking, I just had an exit and we'll get to that. And I'm thinking about what I'm going to do next. Well, what was amazing about the swag industry that I could do again? Like what aspects of it were so amazing? And honestly, all the things I write down, we could get to this, I didn't have any insight of that when we started. Like only in hindsight, it's like, oh my God, that's an amazing thing. For example, when somebody comes to buy swag, they have an in-hand date already in mind. It's not like a long sales process. It's like they have to buy something. They're either going to buy it from us or somewhere else, but they have an event coming up. That's an unbelievable thing. Swag, you don't have to make it until somebody pays for it. It's a crazy business where somebody pays you up front and then you pay from the suppliers to actually produce it. And that could come, net 30, net 60. So the cash flow is unbelievable. It's a business that literally every person I talk to knows somebody, is the person at the company who buys swag or knows somebody or works at a company that buys swag. So literally every conversation in everyday life, it just leads to this conversation. Fourth thing, it's the most fragmented industry. There's 20,000 people in the industry that sell swag. That seems overwhelming to entrepreneurs. Why would I ever start a swag company? But that's an opportunity. If there's 20,000, clearly there's a model. Clearly there needs to be some, automation or streamlining of that business. So there was just so many things that frankly, I didn't even know when I started. All I knew in the very beginning was there's probably the person who buys swag is a little bit older. This is all I knew, honestly, was a little bit older. And now they seem to be younger. And that mindset is different. Maybe they want to buy online. Maybe they don't want to talk to anybody. Maybe they want to focus on the quality aspect and not necessarily about counting pennies. So all these things just went into my brain of what could possibly be different if it's a younger buyer versus an older buyer. And then I started doing the calls and had conversations and I realized that theory was correct. I was wrong about the marketing teams. That was my initial idea, going after the marketing teams. But after speaking to them, I realized everyone goes after the marketing teams. How am I, as swag.com, going to cut through the noise? And it was really the office manager at the company who had the keys, because they didn't buy thousands of pieces. They bought 100 pieces or 10 pieces or 5 pieces. They bought for their company. But if they're buying it, they're giving it out to their employees. And now every employee has powered by swag.com on the inner label of the t-shirt, or swag.com on the bottom of a mug. It's basically introducing swag.com to all these other divisions that could buy swag. So it's like our Trojan horse to get in.
No, I think it's fascinating how you kind of took that one arbitrage point of, like there's a disconnect here in terms of, because I remember I've been buying swag since 2008, and it was always a pretty crappy experience. And I remember we ended up buying from you guys, I think in 2018, or 2019 as a customer, and then again into 2020 and a couple other times. So you're likely having trouble raising money or selling your company. Personally, I've had 4 exits and I've raised over $145 million. If you want a free coaching session with me, just like, subscribe, and leave a comment down below. Let me know what you think of today's video for a chance to win a free coaching session with me. I'll select 3 winners every single month. You just have to like, subscribe, and leave a comment down below for a chance to win. Now, onto the video. When it came to deciding when to raise money, because ultimately you raised a little over $3 million over the course of your business, which to get to $40 million in sales is phenomenal. A business which you kind of talked on the cash flow management side, which I think probably enabled you not to have to raise as much as, say, a tech company. But what trigger, like, when did you raise money? Why did you raise money? And kind of what was your strategy for raising money?
Yeah, so I think I made a mistake here. People have different strategies, and obviously there's different businesses that make sense to raise for. I found myself raising for the wrong reasons. And what I mean by that is, as an entrepreneur, I've had some previous successes. I sold a company, and I've had some previous failures, frankly, more failures than successes before swag.com. It's a very lonely game to be an entrepreneur, even with the co-founder, because most people don't think you have a real job until they start to see it be super successful. So you're kind of working in this weird phase of like, is this ever going to work? Unless you really surround yourself with fellow entrepreneurs, which I have some friends who are entrepreneurs, but you're in a world where it's not real until it's real. So you start to look for outside validation. I think I did that for myself. And how do most entrepreneurs try to get this outside validation? You get press, or you get a VC fund to believe in you. And I honestly believe that I probably raised money because that was what I thought you're supposed to do versus what we actually needed. We didn't need that much money. Even 3.8 million that we raised, it's a lot for me. That maybe not doesn't seem like a lot for some of your audience. There's different amounts. But I probably could have built this into what we did for 500,000, if I'm being honest. We never really needed the money in the early days. It was about, well, we might want to grow a little faster and this or that. Let's raise some. But then ultimately when we raised it was more of a safety net versus actually using it for driving growth. And I would say for myself, the next time I ever start a business, I'm only going to raise money if I really know the use for it. If I could take that money and put it directly to driving the business.
Let me interject there with the safety blanket methodology. Do you feel you would have made decisions differently? Do you think you would have hired differently or been less aggressive on certain marketing, despite you not actually using the money, but knowing that it was there? Do you feel it changed your psychology?
Honestly, no. And that's the problem. In the early days, it was me and my co-founder Josh the first year. The second year we hired our first employee. We only had about 5 employees and we were doing over $3 million in sales. The cash flow of the business was great. We collected money up front. It was in e-commerce. So Facebook would go to our website and pay $10,000 on a credit card. And we would collect that. And then our suppliers didn't need us to pay. So we ordered from suppliers, they printed it, and they drop shipped it directly to Facebook. That was kind of our model. We were the middleman, and we curated the best products, the best vendors. That was the heavy lifting to make sure it's quality. But we didn't owe our vendors for 45, 60 days. We had insane cash flow. We never were we were as aggressive as we wanted to be because we had all this money up front. That's how the model worked. Some of these orders could be $100,000 order on the credit card. Our average order size was $4,000. In our industry, the average size is $700. Our average order size was $4,000. It was so much larger, and they were paying up front, which is not necessarily common in our industry. The model made so much sense because who we were going after, the premium nature of our products, it was really high quality, it was curated. It was more, honestly, it was quote unquote safety blanket, but we never really touched it. I never even changed. I was always aggressive. Maybe if I raised a lot more money, I would have been way more aggressive. And that's maybe people get in traps. If you raise a lot of money, you start doing a lot of different things and you're less focused. So I think by us raising 3.8 million, it wasn't that much. It was really about 2.6 million, the whole business. And then COVID hit and we raised 1.2 million. That was really probably the only time we should have raised because it was we went from 800,000 to like 50,000. a month in sales. It was crazy. I didn't want to fire my team. I mean, that's what we were being told. We were told by everybody around us. You got to cut costs. You got to fire your team, let people go. I always felt that COVID was a short time thing. It wasn't like a forever thing. And I didn't want to kind of destroy my whole company, just have to rebuild it. So me and my co-founder cut our salaries to basically nothing. We asked all the employees to kind of cut their salaries in half, but then we'll make it up to them once we hit a revenue. I want to avoid firing anybody if we could. And we raised 1.2 million just if this ended being up longer than people thought, we would be okay. And luckily, when we sold the company, we had over 1.2 million still in the bank. Like we raised in 2020, we sold November of 2021. We still had that amount of money still in the bank. So we never actually probably even touched that money. That gave me some flexibility to make decisions without having to be fearful of going under.
Well, it's so important. One, the fact that you acted that quick to recognize the problem in the situation. But when it came to raising that money, was that an insider round from the people that invested in you previously? Did you go out and find new investors?
Yeah.
How did you go about sourcing?
Both. It was by far the most stressful period of my life at the time. I mean, my wife was pregnant. We just left New York City, which was terrifying to be in New York City during COVID. We were living in my parents' house. I saw this business that we scaled to 7 million, 100% growth. From 2016, I thought we were on a rocket ship, and then it looks like it's about to crash down. It was insanely depressing and scary, frankly. And I was calling everybody, honestly. Every insider, most of our current investors did not. They were nervous also, and I don't blame them. It's not like saying everyone was nervous. No one knew what was going on. So we probably raised half of that from current investors, half of it from completely new people, and we gave a ridiculous price. The price at the time was, when we did 7 million in revenue, I think we raised it at 14 million valuation. We doubled to 7 million and we raised it at 18 million valuation. We only went up. It wasn't a down round. We went from 14 to 18. But if COVID didn't exist, we would have probably raised like a 30 million plus at that point. And we just need the money in. We were okay diluting ourselves. It was more about like a security at that point.
No, it's smart decision making. And I also respect that you understand the multiples in your industry and the industry you're in. I talked to so many founders that are like, well, we're doubling. We should deserve like SaaS valuations. I was like, no, not the case. But I would say with your competitive edge plus growth rate and to have an outstanding exit not too much later, let's switch to the custom ink journey. So how did that come about? Did they knock on your door? Did you run a process? Did you hire bankers? What was your process?
Yeah, we weren't actually looking to sell at all. And I think oftentimes that allows you to actually get the deal over the finish line because it's the most stressful process trying to sell a business. It's like two jobs. Like you're still keeping the business running and you need it to grow because if any slowdown, it's going to make them pull back. And the other time you can't really tell people on your team because you don't want people to get their hopes up or start not focusing. So you really have to keep in a very small circle on who you tell and you're dealing with that process of diligence and negotiating and all the different stuff. With Custom Ink, our first interaction with them was, I believe, end of February 2020, literally 3 weeks before COVID. I had a friend reach out and say, hey, I want to put you in touch with somebody at Custom Ink. I know you're not looking to sell, but just to be in contact with him. Who knows what could lead, right? They're a big player in their industry. They probably have heard of you at this point. It's probably good to just start conversations. Maybe there's a partnership. It wasn't about acquisition at all at that point. And we met with them and we had like an hour conversation and it was great. They actually invited us down to their office to continue discussion, but it was never about acquisition. It's just about getting to know each other as people in this industry. And the time we were supposed to go was when COVID started. They called us back up and said, hey guys, obviously COVID's happening. Can we just delay this for a little bit? No one knew how long it would take. They just put this meeting on pause. They said, okay, let's focus on our business. And then our business went off a cliff and it was horrible. We had to, I didn't even think about Custom Ink at that point. I was thinking about how to survive, how to raise some money, how to get through it. In October of that same year, they reached back out to us out of the blue. We didn't speak to them for 7 months or so. I can't do the public math, but several months from that moment. And they said, well, how are you guys doing? I guess like a quick check-in. How do you guys survive this? At that point, we pivoted really hard to individual distribution. Our 7 million in the previous year, we were on pace to do over 10 million. We ended up the year at 15 million, but we were on pace at that point in October. November and December were crazy. We said, we're doing great. We're up this year. The whole industry was down significantly, like 40%, and we were up. That was like, wow, that's kind of crazy. So then they started to, I think, change the conversation in like the end of 2020 to more of, maybe you guys could be a good fit for us. Starting those kind of conversations. And I was thinking, well, I never thought about selling. We're so early. And frankly, I was in the survival mode. And now that we survived, we were thriving. I'm like, why would I sell at this point? We just kept the conversations going. That wasn't really a mindset. Early 2021. Then something really crazy happened. I don't know if it was released that somebody mentioned it or just the timing. People were following our journey and realizing that we were growing and this is the time to buy us. There's about 8 other companies that reached out to us. Unprovoked. We had no banker. It was like conversations, like really large companies in our space and adjacent spaces saying, hey, we'd love to have a conversation. We think you guys could be a great, partner with us or acquisition, or another one that was maybe the same size as us at the time asked to merge with us. There's all these kind of different things in the woodworks. And we kind of asked ourselves, like, why is it happening right now? Maybe like we're not going to get this opportunity again where there's so many people who are interested. Maybe we capitalize on this. And frankly, we were growing over 100% every single year. I was taking very little salary. My co-founder was taking very little salary. I was having my first kid. My co-founder was at his third kid at this point. It was like, maybe it's the right time to sell for the right buyer. And after doing the conversations, we realized that Custom Ink felt like really the right buyer for us for several reasons. We were focused exclusively on B2B. At this point, we've done about 20,000 companies that buy from Swag Duck. At the time, it was like 10,000 or so, but it was only B2B. Custom Ink was primarily consumer. They do some B2B, but their business was consumer. They had this entire back-end process of printing, manufacturing, and insane buying power and insane shipping rates. And our feeling is we're not going to be really competing with each other. We're going after 2 different segments, but sharing the same back-end. So the cost structure would be the same. And we're going to be actually able to make a lot more money. And frankly, the people at Custom Ink just felt like people we wanted to work with. They were entrepreneurial. They were very nice, avoided a lot of the challenges that we anticipated we were going to have. And so we felt like it was the right decision. In August or so of 2021, they sent us the LOI, and then we ended up closing in November. So things do take time. There's a lot of diligence that's involved. Luckily, when we were selling the business, we went from 15 million to over 32 million that year of the sale. So the sales were keeping the pace of what we were presenting and how we were presenting it. So everything just worked perfectly.
No, it sounds like the best timing ever to sell. I think in the last 20 years, 2021 was the best time for anyone to sell, but also just continuing to pump your numbers. And it sounds like, given your positioning in the market, probably targeting a lot of tech companies or tech forward type companies that thrived in that time period, your revenues, stayed skyrocketing, whereas maybe more legacy type customers were struggling.
It's actually crazy. In 2022, this is after the acquisition, there was a turn, like the tech where it was not the best place to be in early 2022. Silicon Valley Bank was one of our biggest customers. They went under in March of 2022. They were buying like a lot of stuff, Yeti coolers, unlimited stuff. It was crazy. Silicon Valley Bank. I have some Silicon Valley Bank swag in my house as a relic. The timing was amazing for us, but I still think it was a very good deal for Custom Ink because our business is very strong. It was still growing. It was outperforming the industry. And as a whole, whether it's a huge growth every single year, it doesn't always happen, but the world needs swag. Businesses, it's just, they buy for different reasons. And our focus was really about quality. From the very beginning, you don't want to spend thousands of dollars on something that ends up in the trash, right? It's not good for the environment. It's not good for a company. So spend a little bit more, make sure it's premium quality. People actually use it and they'll keep coming back.
I want to go back to the Custom Ink. You had a couple other people bidding on you and people having conversations with you. What was the negotiation process? Like, I feel founders always kind of glaze over this part, but in the reality of when you're in the pits, you're having that conversation, what was that like? What was going through your mind? What could you tell your team? What could you not tell your team? What was that experience?
I didn't tell my team anything. I didn't want to distract anybody because I wasn't really looking to sell fully until we had the price that made sense. It was flattering, right? Somebody wants to buy you, it's flattering, but the numbers initially that they were presenting were not the numbers I would ever accept. So it was interesting. And who knows? I kept saying to them, it doesn't seem like this is going to work, but let's stay in touch. That was it. I think the best tactic is to really be willing to walk away, like have a price in mind. We had a price in mind and we weren't going to sell for below that. Any number below, even if it sounded like maybe we should come down, we weren't super actively looking to sell. We were profitable. We were growing over 100% year over year. We couldn't really predict that 2021 was going to be the top, right? No one could know that. So we didn't think that, frankly. It was, it wasn't like a genius of us to know that it was going to be at the top and let's sell. It was just, we had a number. We knew what the traditional multiples of the industry were, and that's what they were trying to lean on. That's what everyone who reached out to us was trying to lean on. We knew we weren't the traditional model because I said to them every single time, what promo company, what swag company is growing over 100% every year? None. What swag company was growing in COVID? None. Everyone was down. We grew over 100%. So you can't just treat us like a traditional promo distributor. It has to be a premium on it. What promo company is able to collect money up front and then owe vendors 60 days later? Doesn't exist. What promo company is a 4,000 average order size? Everything about our model was different. So stop trying to treat us like the same. I think the mindset for us, me and Josh, was just, let's just walk away if it's not going to come. And ultimately, they came to the price that we could live with.
And yeah, I think that's like the fact that you held your ground and recognized your core differentiation and called them out on that. And I think that's something that, one, you got to build a great company. First and foremost, to have that kind of negotiation, you have to have a great company that's truly differentiated. But I think the way you approached it and the conversations that you had, it sounded like, that ultimately led to, having the outcome that you had. And if you would have waited 6 months later,
don't know.
Jason,
it wasn't truly a negotiation, and it was just something that, like, I want to be transparent. It was more of a transparency with them. I value them a lot. I think they were great people. They're very smart. They built an amazing business. It wasn't like trying to play games. It was just, there's no reason to continue the conversation unless it got to the place where we felt good, because we weren't going to sell. And so it was just trying to tell them, we are different. We know we're different. And this is what we're willing to do.
Was it only you and your co-founder at the table? Or did you have advisors or investors?
No. We had some investors, and we had actually one really good investor who was in the promo industry. And he was just a good sounding board. He basically said to us, and everyone said this to us, we had a lot of investors who hated the deal at the time. Now they liked it. We've had investors who were saying to us, they're not going to approve it. They're not going to sign it. We think it's a bad deal for you. We think it's a bad deal for us. This could be way more than you're getting. I always found the people who were so excited, some of these investors were getting 20 times their money. What I found is that the investors that were obsessed over the moon were the smaller investors. The investor who put 10,000, 50,000, 100,000 in, they were ecstatic. It was like, we're changing their life. I got bottles of wine sent to my house during this process. People were like, this is going to change my family's life. And the investors who put in maybe a little bit more, put maybe 400, 500,000 in, they wanted to keep going, because to them, making a couple of million doesn't change their life, right? They're worth tens of millions, hundreds of millions in some cases. So they just want to keep us going. When you take money from investors, you really have to be super aligned. Maybe even have conversations. Like my next company I start, I'm going to be really upfront from the very beginning. This is not going to be a multi-billion-dollar business. This is what you should expect at the best case. This is a great outcome. I want to make sure we're aligned so that we don't have the issues. At the time of selling, it was stressful, and it didn't need to be. This was a great win for everybody. And for me and my co-founder, we're already stressed out. Is the deal going to close? Are we making the right decision? Internally, we had doubts also. Like maybe we are selling too early. When you have a lot of smart people telling you're selling too early, you start to think maybe you are selling too early. At the end of the day, you have to just go with your gut. That was it. Like it was me and my co-founder's gut that this was the right price. We had people who said they loved it. We had people saying this is the worst deal ever. We had to make the decision that this was the fair price for the time. And we did. We felt like it was a fair price. If maybe we were even selling a little short. That's how the mindset worked, but we were okay to live with it. Now in hindsight, it probably was a little high because of 2021. But no one knows that. We weren't going to sell unless there was a certain price. It wasn't a negotiation. It was being upfront and honest and wanting to go into this with a good partnership. If we're going to do it, I want to feel good about it for everybody.
I think it's really well said. And I think it's that key piece that you brought up about telling people this is not $1 billion outcome and being upfront with investors. I talked to so many founders. A lot of founders don't realize that, or they don't. They think they have to keep making up a story that has to be $1 billion outcome to get money. I think being honest and upfront, and then running your business accordingly, not trying to raise tens of millions for your business, but managing the business appropriately to be less capital hungry. So appreciate you sharing that.
I'll say one thing, Jason. Every entrepreneur is different, and everyone has their own number of what changes their lifestyle. Some people might think they need to be a multi-billionaire or they need to build a $1 billion. But I'm telling you, you don't. Like, there's so many other outcomes for entrepreneurs. And frankly, I know, Jason, you're an investor, and I'm sure you're a great investor, but just the mentality of an investor is very different than a founder. You have to realize you're on the same page to an extent. You're really not, in many ways, at least how I felt. I had some great investors. I want to put great investors. These investors are putting $100,000, $1 million into 20 different companies. Yes, they want you to succeed. Yes, they're rooting for you. Yes, they're going to help you. But if you fail, they're going to have a bad dinner that night. Maybe they'll have a bad weekend. If you're spending 7, 8 years on your life and you fail, you're not going to get out of bed for months. You're going to be depressed. It's a different level of scale. This is all you have. This is your life. And this is, yes, it's their life, but they're diversified. You're not, frankly, diversified. At least that's how I felt. So when it came to the decision of selling, yes, you want to do what's right by the investors. We made a lot of money for a lot of investors. I felt like I cleared that threshold. But at the end of the day, as a founder, you should make the right decision for yourself as well. I think that there's a balance. You don't want to do a deal that's bad for investors. But if you do a good deal, if you feel in your bones that you're getting the right price for the deal and it works for you, then you should be allowed to take that deal. You put everything into it. It's your business. I don't know. That's just how I feel with it.
I completely agree. I think founders need to recognize that, but also give them the take the right money when you take the money to know that you have those options on the road. It's hard to tell always how, down the road, someone might change their opinion and, combat you in a particular transaction. But, happened with me in selling Liquid Sky to what was supposed to be to Samsung. But because one of our board members got greedy, basically blocked the deal, lost time, deal fell apart for a couple other reasons. But that time we lost for him trying to get more money out of the deal against us, like behind our back, ended up completely blowing the deal and screwing us and putting us into a hell of a turmoil for a year until we ended up selling to Walmart. So it's important to always get aligned, both with board and investors. I appreciate you sharing that. Before we wrap up, I just wanted to ask you, are there parting words for founders that we haven't covered already that you would want to share?
Yeah, I assume your audience is, seasoned entrepreneurs, new entrepreneurs, everything all in between. There's a famous quote that says like, fear kills more dreams than failure ever could. It's the mindset of like not doing something. And I think a lot of entrepreneurs, I know this from, I'm friends with a lot of people who are entrepreneurs. I'm friends with a lot of people who are aspiring entrepreneurs. Everyone has an idea, but not that many people do it. And because they're fearful of what's going to happen. And I'll always say is when you start a business, you have to have a thesis. You have to have an idea, but that idea, you should be open to changing it. You can't be so set on it. So really what it comes down to is your idea most likely is not the right idea. Ultimately, it changes a million different ways. It goes in a million different directions. Just start. I say with that mindset, being really okay to getting feedback, really okay to change your opinion. It doesn't mean you're failing. It means you're succeeding. The more you fail, the quicker you fail, the more you succeed. When we sold Swag, all my friends said, wow, I can't believe it happened so fast. From starting in 2016 to selling in 2021 seems fast. I started when I was 22 years old. I sold when I was 36. My other businesses, and I've had some failures and successes along the journey. Entrepreneurship is a lifetime sport. The business that you're in today might not be the business that's going to make you, right? But it might teach you something that will make you be better the next time. And that business might not make you, but that's going to teach you something. The best thing you could do is just learn every single time and don't walk away being like blaming other people or blaming time of like, we were launching the right time or we're too early. Maybe those are the cases, but maybe there was something you learned that you would do differently the next time. Every time I do something, I want to take something that I learned and make myself better. My next business is not guaranteed to succeed because of all these learnings and because of my success, right? There's ups and downs, but I think I have a better chance of succeeding now because of all the things I've lived through and all the things I've seen. I know that when something really bad happens at the scale of like a COVID, there is a way to get through. There is a way to pivot. There is a way to figure out a niche and kind of grow and scale when everyone is cowering and playing in defensive mode. Maybe that's even the right time to attack. I just think for the entrepreneurs, go for it. Be okay with learning. Be okay with pivoting. Ultimately, you're either going to win or you're going to learn.
What would be the best way for people to learn more about you or to reach out to you if they're interested in having a chat with you?
Yeah, reach out to me. My email, you can reach out to me to jeremy.ian.parker@gmail.com. Love to connect. Reach out to me on LinkedIn, Jeremy Parker. And thanks so much for having me, Jason.
It's been a pleasure. Thanks, Jeremy. Thank you for watching today's episode. As a reminder, I'm your host, Jason Kirby. I have built and sold multiple companies with over 135 million in transactions as either a founder, operator, investor across multiple industries. I'm currently the managing director and founder of Thunder.vc, where we help companies and founders at all stages navigate what capital to raise and who to raise it from, and help improve companies' odds of raising capital. If you need help, reach out to us at help.thunder.vc. If you like today's show, please share with your friends, give us a like or a comment down below. And as a reminder, this show is published weekly. And to get notified of new episodes and our newsletter, be sure to go to our website at join.thunder.vc. And if you sign up today, I'll send you a few freebies on how to negotiate a term sheet, how to get a free list of relevant VCs, and much more. That's it. No more shameless plugs. Thank you, and see you next week.